This is the Midnight Skeptic again, and happy President's Day to everybody out there. This is the day that I'm recording this. We're going to be talking about safe nuclear reactors, bad news on the religion front, as if there's ever any good news. And here we go.
You are listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, 103.3 FM, streaming live on kpca.fm, and on Petaluma Community Access Channel 26 or 99 on ATT-Uverse. You can find us on YouTube by searching The Midnight Skeptic, and you can contact us at themidnightskeptic@gmail.com. Remember, think logically, think critically, and live joyously.
Hello again, and this is the Midnight Skeptic, and I have to make this announcement, which I forgot to do last time, and I have to do it every time. The station management reminded me in their nice way. The views, my views, the views of the Midnight Skeptic do not necessarily, repeat, not necessarily reflect the views of radio station KPCA LP or the views of its parent company, Petaluma Community Access. Okay, now that that's over, quick shout-outs, very quick shout-outs. I'm not going to go into the lives of all of the people that are listening across this great land of ours. Geraldine Goldfinger in Long Island, Dr. David Rubin in the Raleigh-Durham area, and Nelson and Alice Lydell down in Sarasota, Florida, and down in the Arizona area, my loving brother Brandon in Santan Valley, and Karina Hilliard. And locally, Tim Conrad, Mickey Huff, who is head of Project Censored, and Sarah Fletcher up in the Seattle area. And let's see, I know I'm leaving out somebody, but it's okay. A correction from last week's show. I was talking about this mineral that can be ground up and spread along beaches in order to de-acidify the ocean. It's one way of, on a small scale, de-acidifying the ocean up near the beach. And the mineral I mentioned, and I was blathering without my notes, as sometimes I do, and I misidentified the mineral. I said it was serpentine. The actual mineral is olivine, and it is a result of volcanic eruptions. That's why there's so much of it over in Hawaii. And it's a greenish mineral, as is serpentine, and it is a very basic meaning not acidic, meaning it kind of counteracts the acidification of the ocean. If you grind up this mineral rock and spread it out in the shallows of a bay or on a beach, the waves will wash it out a little further, and it de-acidifies on a small scale. This isn't the ultimate answer to the ocean getting more acid. But on a small scale, this helps. This is one of the ways. The big way is just to stop putting so much carbon dioxide, CO2, in our atmosphere, because the ocean absorbs this, and then I'm not a chemist enough to know exactly what the reaction is, but the ocean gets more acidic the more CO2 we pump into the atmosphere. So, anyway, it's olivine and not serpentine, although they are sort of in the same family of minerals. I'm not a rock hound, and I'm not a chemist enough to know exactly what the difference is. Okay, enough for corrections. I want to go into a little bit about, why am I even doing this show? What is this show all about? And what's in my mind? And what do I hope to accomplish by even shouting out all these things to the thousands and thousands and thousands of listeners out there? Okay, on environmentalism. I try to be as positive as possible, like the olivine thing that I talked about 2 weeks ago. And I rely on I relay information about new climate and CO2 mitigation technology, and on health and human happiness. I try to speak out about medical quackery and, for that matter, religious quackery, which, in my opinion, most of it is. On politics, I speak out for progressive values and against what this current Republican party has become. And believe it or not, I am still a registered Republican, and I always have been. When I first voted, at that time, when I turned 21, this was before the voting age was lowered to 18 during the end of the Nixon administration. I registered as a Republican. And at that time, and for maybe a decade after that, there were such things as responsible, thoughtful, knowledgeable Republicans out there. Dole, Barry Goldwater, Everett Dirksen. I'm probably going back farther than most of the listeners know about, but Senator Everett Dirksen, Senator Barry Goldwater, who ran for president once, and I was kind of proud to be a semi-conservative Republican, a conservative with a small c, and I enjoyed supporting and reading about conservative values. I believed in a semi-balanced budget. I believed in as few regulations as possible. That's a conservative stance on things. However, given that, it's been literally decades since I've ever voted for a Republican. And then now, like today, the Republican Party has been taken over by the orange sociopath back in Washington, D.C. And, I just been, equal parts laziness and equal parts wondering what sort of voting materials I get in the mail or over the phone. I did get, this was about 12 years ago. I got a phone call from the NRA, and they were trying out a new ad that was made by Wayne LaPierre, and they wanted my opinion as a good registered Republican. They wanted my opinion about what it sounded like and whether I would support their agenda. And okay, so I listened to it, and it was about a 60-second rambling discourse on protecting our Second Amendment rights and blah, 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 blah. When it was over, the guy asked, what did you think of it? And I thought, okay, there's a word that I don't think I'm going to be able to use It starts with A, and there's two more letters, and then whole afterwards. But I told this guy, this Wayne LaPierre sounds like a paranoid hole. Okay, the station management can't ding me for that. But anyway, needless to say, I never got another phone call from them. But anyway, that's one of the reasons I have remained a registered Republican. Now I'm in the California primary. I'm going to be voting for Bill Weld. He's an ex-Massachusetts governor who is, believe it or not, running against the orange sociopath for the Republican nomination for president. Okay. Progressive values and registered Republican and blah, blah. What I'm skeptical about, I mean, after all, this program is called the Midnight Skeptic. Well, what are the things that I'm skeptical about? Well, here's a few of the things that I'm skeptical about. The obvious things that I'm skeptical about are ghosts and hauntings and chemtrails and Bigfoot and Yeti and astrology and psychics. All of that. I'm not going to go into those things, although there is a member of the skeptic community, Susan Gerbic, Gerbic. She lives down in Salinas, and she started up the Monterey area skeptics. And her thing is debunking psychics that claim to talk to departed relatives that are on the other side. And obviously they're phony. There is no other side. And I'm glad that she does this. It's something that I don't want to get involved with. They are just so idiotic. And people that go to these people to find out what the dearly departed Aunt Bessie is trying to tell them. Okay. It's a scam, and I'm glad that Susan Gerbic does it because somebody has to. Let's see. James Van Praagh is one of them. The names of other ones don't come to mind right away, but there's plenty of them out there, and they make a ton of money. It's showbiz to them. Hot reading and cold reading. If you Google hot reading or cold reading, probably Susan Gerbic will come up, and then she'll explain what cold reading is all about. And it's a learned skill. Now, these psychics, professional psychics, and communicating with the dead people, it's a showbiz learned skill. Okay, so I'm skeptical about the purposefulness or lack thereof of religion, and I'm not picking on just Christianity, although that's the milieu that I've been raised in. I'm not a Christian, but all religions. I'm skeptical about the alternative and complementary health practices. I talk a lot about that. And by complementary and alternative health practices, CAM, acupressure, acupuncture, chiropractic, homeopathy, naturopathy, Chinese traditional medicines, and so on and so on. They prefer to be called now integrative medicine because they keep trying to squeeze more and more of their practices into real medicine in hospitals and things. I have a friend up in Sonora who has a daughter who has been battling Lyme disease her whole life, not her whole life, but say for the last 10 years. And nothing in real medicine seems to have helped. And so I just found out that she is going to visit an Ayurvedic medicine spa in Nepal. It's not my place to make fun of it in her earshot. She's not one of the persons that listens to this show. But anyway, I think I'm safe in saying this. Ayurvedic, Ayurvedic, is ancient traditional Indian, as in India, medicine. And I hesitate to even use the word medicine in regards to that. But that's one of the complementary and alternative medicines that I think are essentially quackery. Okay, along with traditional Chinese medicine and Chinese herbal medicine and crystal healers, Reiki treatments, okay, things like that. That's what I'm skeptical about, and I talk about that a little bit on almost every show that I do. And what ticks me off is the fact that they keep trying to sneak these quackeries into real medicine by changing the name that it is called. The current term is integrative medicine. And if you didn't know about this, you'd ask yourself, well, what the heck is integrative medicine? Well, this is what it is. It's quackery being snuck into real Western science-based medical practices. Okay. I'm skeptical about almost all psychotherapies. All right. So, as a young person growing up in the late 60s, early 70s, there were so many damn therapies floating around that were absolutely bogus and useless. The current buzzwords that are floating around now, like mindfulness, human potential, that dates back to the late 60s, life coaching, any helping form that can be monetized or corporatized is used to get more production out of corporate workers. That's essentially what it is. Now, how can I be skeptical of the term mindfulness? Well, what it is just slowing yourself down, breathing deeply, and just thinking about, the meaning of life for a while. That's all it is. And then I forget the name of the person who first called it mindfulness, but now you see that everywhere. And it's just a marketing word. And that's really all it is. If everybody, including me, would just slow their lives down a little bit, and if you have a cat, get the cat sitting in your lap and pet it for a while. Think about what life's all about, what your function in life is all about. You don't have to come to any earth-shaking conclusions. Just breathe deeply. I make fun of the 60s and 70s psychotherapies by just going Om. That was, Fritz Perls was one of the ones that kind of monetized various psychotherapies. Watts was another one. His first name escapes me right now. Anyway, I'm skeptical about that, any form that can be monetized, and I'm skeptical about big business and capitalism, although I am, to a degree, a capitalist. I am not a communist. I'm not a pure socialist, although they're trying to hang that label on Bernie Sanders. Our political economy here in this country, we are a mixed economy. We're not pure capitalist. There are limits on what big businesses can do and what they're prevented from doing. We do have a Securities and Exchange Commission that sort of regulates what companies and corporations can do, although I'm not sure that they're really effective now that the head of it has been appointed by the orange psychopath. But yeah, that's my stand on that. Capitalism is slowly beginning to change. Now, I talked about this about 3 shows ago. Jamie Dimon, who's Goldman Sachs CEO, he and a number of other corporate CEOs have begun to toy with the idea of expanding the purpose of corporations to include stakeholders, not just shareholders. If all you care about is return on investment to your shareholders, that is as close to pure capitalism as you can get. Shareholders, through a broker, purchase shares in a company with the expectation that you're going to get a return on your investment. The higher the percentage, the better. Well, there's a group, and I am a bit skeptical about how serious they are, but at least they've paid lip service to this. They are including stakeholders. Well, now what are stakeholders? In addition to the shareholders, stakeholders are people that are affected by the actions of corporations. They are people that are affected by working for these corporations. They are people that are, the stakeholders are affected by what the effect on the environment is of these corporations. Okay, which is all good if they follow through with this. So corporations have to be good citizens. If, as Mitt Romney said, corporations are people, my friend. Oh, God. I just about barfed when I heard him say that. This was not this last election when he was running against Trump. Anyway, corporations are not people, although legally they are. I would consider a corporation a person once they can be imprisoned, just like a CEO. Anyway, let's see, what else? Although the paradigm of capitalism is slowly beginning to change, emphasis on the slowly, I hope that stakeholders are taken into consideration in every corporation that applies for an incorporating document. There are such a things as B Corps, B corporations that are written stakeholders' interests in the corporation are written into the corporate milieu. So that's a good thing. There are not enough every corporation should be a B corporation. Okay. With that said, let's get to the meat of this show. All right. The environment. Okay. There are such things as good nuclear reactors. Now, some of my more progressive listeners out there will probably faint at me hearing this, but we have to get away from, we're almost completely free of coal-fired power plants. It's going down like a rock off of a cliff. And pretty soon we'll just have oil and natural gas power companies. But nuclear power has been gotten to be such a bad reputation. You know, Fukushima and 3 Mile Island and blah, blah, blah. These accidents don't happen that often. Okay. You'll probably disagree with what I'm saying, but there can be safe nuclear reactors. The one problem that is even safe nuclear reactors have to deal with is disposal of the wastes. Now, there's nuclear reactors that are powered by regenerated and recycled nuclear power rods. So I'm not a nuclear power scientist, but this next generation of nuclear reactors could be smaller and greener and safer. SMRs, small nuclear reactors that promise to produce carbon neutral energy more safely and efficiently than traditional nuclear power plants, become closer to a reality as a handful of companies push to overcome key regulatory hurdles. Okay, in December, this is like a month and a half ago, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the independent government agency tasked with ensuring the safety of nuclear power plants, granted the Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA, that's in northern Mississippi and Alabama and Tennessee and Kentucky, that area. Mostly it's hydropower from all the dams that they have at the TVA. Granted the Tennessee Valley Authority the first ever early site permit for one of these small nuclear reactors. Now, last week the Department of Energy invited companies that specialize in advanced nuclear technology to pitch their designs as part of a government effort to keep the U.S. competitive globally when it comes to nuclear technology. Almost every developed country, is lapping the United States in their science of nuclear technology. And so we've really got to catch up because they are not universally bad. The new technology could help boost the nation's production of nuclear power, which emits no carbon dioxide. Repeat, no carbon dioxide. Boy, was that a mistake. It went down the wrong pipe. Okay. Okay, this is an article I found. How are small nuclear reactors designed to improve safety? Major nuclear accidents are fairly uncommon. common and account for fewer deaths than accidents in other energy sectors. If you were to compare the deaths as a direct result of nuclear power plant accidents, Fukushima, 3 Mile Island, and Chernobyl, and all of that, as compared to the deaths as a result of excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, excess particulate matter in the atmosphere causing lung diseases, it's no contest. The dirty power plants come out way ahead in that regard. In 1979, 3 Mile Island accident remains the most serious nuclear accident in U.S. history, where a small amount of radioactive material was released, but no injuries occurred. The companies that are developing small nuclear reactors hope to address these concerns by building new safety features into their designs. NuScale, capital N-U, capital S-C-A-L-E, it's the name of a company, uses light water technology where water is used to keep their cores from overheating, similar to what's used in today's nuclear power plants. Okay. TerraPower, T-E-R-R-A, Power, a nuclear innovation company founded by Bill Gates and headquartered in Bellevue, Washington. That's up north where Bill Gates lives and does his things, has designed 2 models that use liquid sodium and molten salt rather than water as a coolant. The boiling point of liquid sodium is higher than the temperature produced by the nuclear reactor itself. So the company says the reactor will not overheat. Okay, so innovations in nuclear reactors. We should be deploying these small-scale nuclear reactors around the country to, at the very least, take the last of the coal-fired electricity generating plants offline. Okay. There's a little article about, the title of this article is Luminaries Unite to Demand Action. There's a organization called World War Zero that is coming together with political and Hollywood types to combat the growing amount of CO2 in the atmosphere through various means. Being famous is all that's required. Former President Bill Clinton and Jimmy Carter are part of the effort. Moderate Republican lawmakers, God, there are just very few of those left around. Okay. Moderate Republican lawmakers Arnold Schwarzenegger, ex-governor of California, and John Kasich, the former governor of Ohio, are on the list. And then it lists the Hollywood luminaries, Leonardo DiCaprio, Sting, Ashton Kutcher, and blah, 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 and it goes on. But anyway, they've come together to... the debut of the new group Sunday comes as diplomats gather in Madrid on Monday. Okay, this is about a month and a half ago when this gathering in Madrid to talk about global warming. Anyway, the name of this new organization to try to bring attention to global warming is World War Zero. Okay. Catchy name for this organization. Okay. All right. Here's some more good news. How drone deliveries could benefit the environment. Okay. In the era of e-commerce, it takes a single click to order anything you'd like, but it takes a lot of energy to bring it to your door. The convenience comes at an environmental cost. Transportation accounts for 29% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions, with medium and heavy-duty trucks accounting for nearly a quarter of that. When Amazon introduced a design in June for its Prime Air delivery drone, it framed the initiative as part of the vision to make half its shipments net zero carbon by 2030. Wing, W-I-N-G, a division of Mountain View's Alphabet, heralded its service as helpful in easing greenhouse gas emissions after UPS first publicly flew a drone from the top of a delivery truck to drop off a package at a home. An executive called the test a big step toward reducing UPS emissions. Okay, small drones have a lower environmental impact than ground delivery methods, including diesel trucks and even electric vans. According to a study published last year in Nature Communications, but drone batteries need to be charged, and that power has to come from somewhere. But the study in Nature Communications concluded that a 1-pound package delivered by a small drone in California would reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 54% compared with a diesel truck. Okay, this article goes on and on and on and on, but it caught my attention, and now I'm relaying it to you. Don't fear drone deliveries. Okay. In court actions, the Supreme Court of the country of the Netherlands has agreed with the plaintiffs in a lawsuit saying that the government of the Netherlands has a responsibility to reduce the entire country's carbon footprint. And now there's been a number of lawsuits around the world, including the United States. The one that's ongoing right now that's going to be heard in a state court is this lawsuit by the city of San Francisco, the city of Oakland, the county of San Mateo, and a few other counties around the state of California that have all banded together to sue the federal government to force them to take more action to reduce the carbon footprint of the United States. Okay, the government of the Netherlands appealed these decisions all the way up to the Supreme Court of the state of Netherlands. The government appealed that decision, and we're talking about a lower court now, this time to the Supreme Court of the Netherlands. In September, the Procurator General, I guess that's the highest government advocate, published an opinion urging the justices to reject the government's argument. No, I guess the Procurator General was on the side of the plaintiffs, suing the government to get carbon emissions down. The Supreme Court, in the ruling Friday, let's see, when was this? This is January 6th. Okay, in the ruling Friday, Justice Streefkerk said the argument that a cut in emissions in the Netherlands would not have a big effect on a global level. Well, it probably wouldn't. He's probably right that way. Did not absolve a country from taking measures to reduce its own emissions. And this is a quote from the ruling, Dutch Supreme Court. Every country is responsible for its share. The Dutch case has already inspired similar suits against national governments in Europe, including Belgium, France, Ireland, Germany, New Zealand, Britain, Switzerland, and Norway. And from plaintiffs around the world against the European Union, part of a larger trend of citizens seeking action from the courts on climate issues. This lawsuit, it's Juliana versus the United States, and they just lost a court decision in the 9th District here in the Bay Area, saying that they did not have standing to sue the United States. Well, they appealed, and it's going to be reheard by the full 9th District Court. That means all of the justices that are assigned to the 9th District are going to rehear this whole thing. Where they lost was 2 out of 3 of the justices that just heard this case said that they did not have standing. Well, that can be appealed, and I wish them luck. I don't know when the full complement of the 9th District Court is going to hear this case, but I will let you know the outcome of it. Okay, here's an article about this lawsuit over harm from oil. It could be heard in state courts. Okay, now this is a victory for the plaintiffs. Federal Appeal Court seemed inclined Wednesday, this is February 6th, very recently, to allow some California cities and counties to sue oil companies for allegedly deceiving the public for decades about their industry's impact on greenhouse gases and climate change. On a previous show, 3 or 4 shows ago, I talked about how ExxonMobil's own scientists back in the early 70s, late 60s, knew full well that burning fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal, to generate power, to generate electricity for the growth of civilization would eventually cause global warming and severe climate change. They knew this. And the results of their studies, ExxonMobil scientists, when presented to the CEOs and other upper corporate poobahs, they had a choice at that moment, the road not taken. They could have either devoted their millions and millions of dollars of expendable profits to find out ways to mitigate carbon emissions and help power companies spew out less carbon emissions. But what they chose to do with it was to fund right-wing think tanks, meaning Republicans, to sow doubt within the minds of the American public about the real dangers of carbon emissions. That's what they chose to do. Anyway, there's a court ruling that says these lawsuits can proceed against the oil companies. Okay, some good news. I try to find good news for all you people. Okay, little bit of bad news. Okay. In the past 25 years, an area larger than South America has been raised for the purposes of cattle grazing, sheep grazing, and cows releasing methane from digesting grains and grass, mostly through burps, causes 2/3 of the livestock sector's greenhouse gas emissions. a landmark report in Science, the journal, found that avoiding meat and dairy is the single biggest way to reduce one's environmental impact. Okay. This article is called Green Moo Deal. This was out of Mother Jones magazines, which magazine I encourage everybody to subscribe to. They're out of San Francisco. Mother Jones magazine. Investigative reporting is so very important nowadays, especially with the Orange Menace back in Washington. Okay. Ermias Kebriab. His last name is capital K-E-B-R-E-A-B. He is an animal science professor at the University of California at Davis, just, up Interstate 80 a little ways. Has spent 15 years studying alternative ways to reduce livestock effusions, meaning burps and farts of methane. 3 years ago, he heard that researchers in Australia's James Cook University had mixed bacteria from cows' digestive tracts with seaweed and discovered a drastic decrease in methane production. Okay, Kebriab, I guess I'm pronouncing that correctly. Kebriab tried to replicate those results with actual animals. I mean, that's what science is all about, replicating the findings of other scientists. His team mixed varying levels of Asparagopsis armata, a type of red seaweed, into the feed of 12 dairy cows over a 2-month period. The results were shocking. When the cattle's chow consisted of just 1% of the seaweed, their methane emissions went down 60%. In all the years that I've worked in this area, I've never seen anything that reduced it that much. Okay, red seaweed mixed into cattle feed reduces methane. Okay, we've got a lot of dairy farms around here in Sonoma County. So I'm going to make an attempt to find out, well, how many of these dairy farmers know about this. A few of the dairy farmers I know use methane collection devices to power up their farms. I'm not sure which ones do that, but anyhow, that's something I'm going to have to try to find out because it is a technology. Since cows, in fact, do burp out a lot of methane gas, there has to be some way to collect all this methane gas and use it to fire up generators to light the dairy farms up and use the resulting electricity productively. I know that there are some that do this already, but it's an expensive setup. Okay, a successful swallow of coffee. It's not going to send me into paroxysms of coughing. Again, I apologize for that earlier one. Okay, new topic, religion. Okay. Usually on most of my shows, there's a segment that I end up bashing religions, but in my humble opinion, my opinion's not so humble, but in my opinion, religion has outgrown its usefulness. Past usefulness has been a unifying factor to bring cultures together, as long as they believe the same things as their neighbors do. If everybody believes the same thing, that is a unifying factor. and it can be used as a rallying cry, us versus them type of thing. At one time in Europe, Christianity was the religion. This was even before it became Catholic. They were just, if you were religious, you just believed in Jesus and all of the things that go along with that. Then there was the Great Schism, and I think it was 1054 AD. The Eastern Orthodox religions separated off from the European form of Christianity, which became Catholic. And then further on, when Martin Luther tacked up his, 97 gripes about the Catholic Church, and the date of that escapes me right now, then a lot of Europe became Protestant, protesting Protestant. And there were a lot of wars between the two factions. And so, yes, religion existed as a unifying factor that told people how to manage their lives. But beyond, I'm just going to pull a date out of my bunghole. Beyond, say, 1600 AD, it began to not serve any real useful purpose. It just created more strifes than it created more problems for people than actual solutions to problems. Okay, we'll cut ahead now to nowadays. In my opinion, the usefulness of religion is evaporated into the ether. One of the holdovers that fundamentalist Protestant religions cling to is praying the gay away. And it's called anti-gay therapy. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's a conversion therapy. This article calls it anti-gay therapy. All right, that's not the word I was looking for. Some conservative religious organizations still back anti-gay therapy and occasion end up in the court to defend it. Their chances of prevailing have been bolstered by an increasingly right-leaning judiciary fostered by the nation's red-blue divide. Which brings me to the Senate, which brings me to Republican-controlled Senate, which... Anyway, conversion therapy goes against all scientific findings. And I have other articles about that thing, about that anti-gay therapy and its uselessness and scientific invalidity. Okay, there's a couple of articles. Female genital mutilation was one of them, and I will go into this next show in 2 weeks. I'm not going to throw these articles away because they're too important. Now that we're getting more and more Middle Eastern and North African immigrants into this country, along with the immigrants comes this horrible, horrible, horrible practice of female genital mutilation. And so anyway, I will go into that in more depth on my next show. So, final sip of coffee. And here's the play out. And that wraps it up for this week. Again, I'm actually doing this on President's Day, the 17th, Monday the 17th, and this will be broadcast on this upcoming Sunday. And I'm not sure exactly when the YouTube version of this will be available, but it will be, sometime this week. And the show itself, the radio portion of this, will be broadcast at 9 o'clock on www.kpca.fm. And I understand that Petaluma Community Access is broadcasting the TV version of this, which coincides with the YouTube version of it at the same time. So, and it's on channel 26, PCA, Petaluma Community Access, channel 26. Okay, that wraps it up.